Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a review for Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated. We are going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible by showing you absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
literally
you
nothing.
Really
we have boxes that we've already shown, and I think that Direwolf and Renegade have shown everything that we show here. This is primarily going to be us sitting on screen telling you our impression of the game and what we felt from playing it. So first off, I want to start with you, Kira, because you've never even played Clank before. What did you think of just Clank in general?
It was fun. I liked it. It was interesting. I think that kind of the getting up to speed, there's so much going on, so remembering to stay focused seemed really important to not die. But no, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I really liked then the added element that, you know, I don't know now if I'd ever go back and play regular Clank, because I really like everything that this brought to it, with all of the fun stickering and fun things that we can't talk about.
Well, we can't talk about some of it.
Yeah,
so let's talk about basically what you're doing. In Acquisitions Incorporated, you're representing that bureau, so to speak, and you're going into a map, which is a double-sided board, which is already known. On that board, you have an overworld and you have an underworld, and you're representing that corporation trying to do adventures throughout the Clank world. However, in order to do so, you're going to be doing something called contracts now within the game. These are cards that are going to appear at various times within the game. Each of the different scenarios is going to have a prologue and an epilogue, which are going to kind of bookend each of those segments, and they're going to introduce these contracts at various times throughout the different campaigns.
Yeah, and these contracts are not necessarily easy to complete, and they change the game fundamentally. A lot of these contracts give you a time limit. If you haven't completed these contracts by X game, then something bad happens. And that negative thing will actually cascade through the rest of all of your games, which is a super way to handle, super cool way to handle this, because it gives you other goals to do in the game besides just scoring points.
And that's kind of the crux of the game too, is because Clank's always been a game about rushing down into the dungeon, grabbing the loot, and then coming back out. And that holds still for Clank Legacy. But now you have all of these carrots, proverbial carrots out there, or contracts that you're trying to get. And so it kind of makes this semi-cooperative aspect where you're all trying to work together, because you're competing against not only each other in the game, but also this X-corporation called Dran Enterprises. And as you fail as a group, Dran gets stronger and stronger and starts to introduce themselves into the board by like stickers and different cards and different things that you're competing up against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. I like the competitive nature that they give you with this AI character that's just out there screwing up all your progress, everything you're working towards. They're there doing a better job than you at every turn, and you just have to try and keep your head above water, really, and survive long enough to just be like, I hope I get a gold star.
Right.
So, and in addition to those contracts, something that's new and cool about Clank Legacy are waypoints. Yeah. And there are numbered spaces spread out across the board that when you go to them, you'll look at that book of secrets and read specific passages and make decisions. And some of these decisions are going to have you put stickers down on those spaces, find branching paths, new paths that are created, sometimes even find new areas of the board based on what happens in that book.
Yeah, when you look down here, you're going to see a bunch of different envelopes. One of those is a sticker packet. And as we completed all 10 games of the campaign, there are a number of stickers in this that we didn't get to, which is one of the huge draws for me, is because I know, Ryan, you feel very differently. We are going to experience a game that could be very different from another group that plays Clank. You're the kind of player that wanted to experience everything that the game has to offer. I don't think that that's possible in a game that's built around the nature of going in there, trying to get that loot, and then get back out. Because the longer you stay, the more the dragon and the more the other creatures of that world are going to destroy you.
Well, and I think that goes into one of the things we're probably going to talk about here. The crux of that game is how you play it.
Yeah.
And I think there are very much two different ways you can play this game. It is semi-cooperative, and you can choose to focus on the cooperative, and you can kind of make pacts amongst yourself. There's actually cards in the game that will help other players that you can reveal in your turn to kind of help out. And you can kind of say, like, let's try to hit all these waypoints, explore all these things. Let's not go up above the surface. So you can play that way, or you can play the more Clank way, focus on the semi-cooperative part of it, where you're still trying to complete those things while also racing to get the points. And I think every group is going to play this in a little bit different of a mix between those things.
I think that's kind of the joy of it too, is that we experienced it and we took those negative things that happened to us as part of the story. Like, as you experience the game and you don't complete these contracts, they were smart enough to include all of those things within the story. So it started to cascade in different ways, which made you think about the game differently. As we progressed towards the end of the campaign, we started to realize the errors of our going in there, snatching the loot, and coming back out. Then by the 8th and 9th and 10th game, we started to realize if we don't get this done, we're not going to complete the story the way we would want to naturally complete it. So a lot of those cards that we were just passing up in the adventure row, we suddenly started buying and using to help each other out.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself in the middle. I like the shiny things. I go and find those, but I also saw how quickly I was accumulating damage. So I got out and I felt really good about how we played the game, honestly. And I think that the consequences of some of our actions in choosing to be quick about getting out actually made a very enjoyable story as we read through the Book of Secrets and the things that happened. And like you said, motivated us to maybe approach things a little differently, maybe work a little harder at working together sometimes.
Right.
But ultimately, you are trying to win each game and be, the associate spotlight person. Right. So.
Well, and I think that's something that they've done with the meta here that I kind of think they did this on purpose, because the narrative of the game is that we are this corporation, a new corporation. We've never worked together before, and we're trying to make a name for ourselves. And we start off as players just playing Clank, but you're right. By the end of it, we were actually working together far more than we were in the beginning, which really does fit into that narrative of like, okay, like if we don't work together, Dran Enterprises is going to take all of our glory, and we're going to be left with nothing. So we kind of actually started relying on ourselves, which it told an interesting story for us that's going to be different for other players.
Yeah, what do you guys think about that? Like, we've played a lot of narrative and campaign and legacy games together as a group. Betrayal was our #1 game last year, which is a legacy game as well. Where does this fit among the different types of legacy games?
Honestly, I will say flat out, this is the best produced legacy game I've ever played. I mean, you see all those boxes. We had the cool filing cabinet. We had the card compendium, which came in and cards are getting introduced constantly. And the way the sticker sheets came out, and just everything about this game is well executed and very well produced. I mean, the artwork is beautiful. The minis are great. So that alone, for me, puts it in the top tier of all legacy games. And the way that it adapts Clank into legacy it felt like a perfect fit. It never felt like it was grading against itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I really enjoyed Betrayal. I felt like it had a ton of content, but one of the things that I would say, like, immediate difference was the quality of the components, because so much of Betrayal was to be trashed, as with Clank. But it didn't feel like, oh, the leftover bits that didn't get trashed are also maybe not great quality. Everything in here feels like a game. Maybe we'll want to sleeve it or whatever, but overall, it didn't feel like there was a drop in quality in order to cover up the fact that some of it was going to get trashed. But the sheer amount of stuff, like you were just saying, so much stuff in here, and so much left to be discovered. It's just that's just. I mean, there were times where it almost felt like it could approach overwhelming, and it never really did. So it just was very enjoyable. I, of course, enjoy the Book of Secrets, which that's a pretty nice thick book.
Yeah.
There was a lot to read there. The narrative was hilarious. I love the narrative, and it was really a lot of fun to work through it.
I've said this about all legacy games, that I feel like a legacy game, to truly be a legacy game, is a game that needs to consistently introduce new content to you. And this does more than any other legacy game that I've played before. Like, it's almost an overload, as you say. There's so much new content every single game that you play, not just at the start, but things that are getting introduced as you're playing the game. Yeah, you're putting stickers on the board mid-turn. You're getting new cards that are inflected into the adventure row mid-turn. There's new mechanics and new rules that get introduced mid-game. So there's all this new content, but it's so fun. Like, it's so well done, it's so well written, that it's just a super, super solid game from beginning to end. And there are times in the game where we're like, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe this new mechanic is in the game that wasn't there in the Clank. We never thought that it would happen. Like, all these different things are being introduced at different times. And it was just super exciting to watch, start from beginning to end.
And one thing that this game had that I haven't seen in a Legacy game before is just the sheer amount of decision points. There are so many decision points, and they're not just boring decisions. They were all super interesting decisions. And there were so many moments I saw where we would read the Book of Secrets and then somebody's eyes would light up because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this crazy thing is happening. And you don't just make gameplay decisions or narrative decisions. You actually craft some cards and you put stickers on cards, and you like, everything kind of carries forward in future games too. So like, the amount of decisions you make, that's my biggest pro for this game.
Yeah, even the contracts that will haunt you from round to round. I mean, if you don't complete them on one round, you may complete them by the fifth game or the sixth game, and they all are threaded together in a way that makes sense via narrative. All right, we obviously love the game. Is there any negatives that you have about the game as well?
Know your group that you're playing with. Jeremy likes to play Clank the way you heard him say. Ryan likes the shiny things. That can cause some conflict if you guys aren't playing the same game, and maybe not a good experience for some people playing. So I would say just make sure that you guys are a little bit more open and be flexible with your group. I think if you have people that want to go hunt for the shiny, go hunt for the shiny, because otherwise you're just not going to have a fun campaign.
Sure. Yeah, I think I don't know that they're really even cons. Obviously, Clank is a game where you can die and you can score 0 points. And that's going to happen to you a lot. Some of these secrets that you want to get have you going very deep into the dungeon. You kind of have to decide at some point, like, I'm just going to sacrifice myself to get these secrets. And you have to know going into it that's going to happen. And we've talked about the number of content. I don't know if that I would recommend this to just like a first-time gamer, right? Like, the amount of content you're getting, even mid-turn, it's overwhelming. Even we as experienced gamers miss some things. Like, we had to go back, oh shoot, like, we forgot to read this, or we forgot to add this sticker, or read a rule. That's not a total con, because I think people just need to know that going into it. Like, you might love Clank, but if you've never played a Legacy game before, this is definitely, I would say, advanced level Legacy. Which, for some people, that's the huge draw here, too.
Right. Clank is a gateway game. It's one of those games that can be played by anyone. And the basic game here is exactly the same. But when you have, 4 or 5 different contracts out, you have different spaces that have different abilities, different things that can happen with them. There's a lot of tracking that you have to take care of, not to mention the cards that you have in your hand and what you're trying to use for those cards. So there are things you could obviously forget if you're trying to rush through the game quickly. Having said that, this is a fantastic Legacy game. Can't recommend it enough. It should be available very soon. It's called Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated. It is 2 to 4 players. Takes about, an hour to an hour and a half to get through each game that we played. And you can be continued afterwards. That should be noted as well. Once you complete the game, any of the contracts that you have left over, any of the waypoints that you have left over, those things you can go back and re-explore and find all those things in this awesome Book of Secrets. So you're not just done with the game right there. You'll have a Clank that is unique to you and your group forever.
Yeah, incredibly unique.
Very unique, yeah. So if you have any questions, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do. And we will catch you guys next time.